inside the mind of Serbia's dictator, the man who has brought NATO to war. The attack tonight is aimed in part at breaking Slobodan Milosevic's grip on power, also to bring him to the peace table. He's held that power as president of Serbia since 1989. Before that, he was a gas company executive and a bank director. He's married and he has 2 children. In depth tonight, NBC's Andrea Mitchell on the man the United States says is responsible for this crisis in Kosovo.
The CIA calls him the Saddam Hussein of the Balkans, the 57-year-old president of Yugoslavia.
President Slobodan Milosevic.
Those who know him say he's cunning, shrewd, alternately brutal and deceptively charming. Not to be trusted, they say, especially when he promises peace.
We'll do our best to support every peaceful solution.
U.S. officials say he is not a madman, but deeply disturbed psychologically. Both his mother and father committed suicide. The son, observers say, is prone to violent mood swings and foul language when negotiating. At the same time, they say he loves luxury, lives in a palace filled with Rembrandt paintings and priceless Baroque furniture.
He enjoys himself, he likes good food, and he's a heavy drinker.
And even after negotiating all night, he is still a natty dresser. His greatest passion, his die-hard communist wife, Mira, fiercely ideological and also his most trusted political operative. In fact, some say she all but runs the country, helped transform her husband from a Communist Party hack to a nationalist tyrant. But critics say, unlike Saddam and other dictators with regional ambitions, Milosevic has no vision for his country beyond ethnic cleansing and clinging to power.
His priority is getting power, holding on to power. He's very tactical.
In fact, the U.S. blames him for starting 3 wars in Croatia, Bosnia, and now Kosovo.
But President Milosevic, who over the past decade started the terrible wars against Croatia and Bosnia, has again chosen aggression over peace.
His sole motivation, those who know him say, a determination to stir up his people's anger against all outsiders.
A person that I think manifests power, wants to retain power at all cost.
And it has worked. In his country, he is revered for standing up to the West. Elsewhere in the world, he's called the Butcher of the Balkans, responsible for the deaths of 250,000 of his countrymen. Officials say 2.5 times more than the number of Iraqis killed by Saddam. The real fear, U.S. officials say, is that Milosevic might want a prolonged war in order to consolidate power. One critic says, quote, he is both the arsonist and the fireman. They say creating a crisis, then resolving it, so he is the hero, no matter how much suffering he causes. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington.
Tonight, as the bombs fall, the U.S. military believes that Milosevic is hiding out in a deep Soviet-style underground bunker somewhere near Belgrade. We'll have the other news of the day when we come back, and the fact.
And later on the century, Memphis dreams. A young truck driver gyrates and changes the culture.
He was the prettiest thing I'd ever seen in my life. He was just gorgeous.
I may not get there with you.
And Martin Luther King's final days in the struggle for change.
The sign, it didn't say peace, it didn't say freedom, it didn't say justice. It said, I am a man.
In no man's land, America goes to war to end all war.
Heroism was dead from that moment, because it didn't help you to survive whether you were heroic or not.
And ends its longest war by abandoning its friends.
When the helicopter left the roof of the embassy, I was extremely, extremely upset that if I'd tried to talk, I would have cried.
In Coming Apart, America is on the brink of collapse, but finds someone to believe in.
This nation is asking for action, and action now.
And the Cold War comes to Hollywood.
Are you a member of the Communist Party?
I have replied to that. You have no right to ask me that.
The witness is through. Stand away.
You might say with bravado, oh, they're not going to do anything to us. But you weren't sure.
And looked down and suddenly realized there were lots of people. And they were even coming over the walls.
The evolution of revolution. What was it that made these men and women so angry?
That was the first time I heard death to America, death to the hostages.
The story of how Hitler got there and the ultimate power of the bomb on Thursday. I hope you'll join us. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
That Yugoslav leader Slobodan Milosevic is ready to talk peace. Maureen Maher reports on the continuing atrocities against ethnic Albanians.
If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then these images speak volumes. The anguished faces of Kosovar Albanians forced to flee from their burning homes and villages.
You must hurry. You want to stop a massacre. You must hurry, please.
In the last week alone, 60,000 refugees have flooded neighboring Kosovo borders. If you have luck and money, according to this man, at least 1,000 Deutschmarks, they will let you go. But you need a lot of luck. The White House and NATO deny the airstrikes have provoked the recent wave of Serb attacks, claiming Yugoslav leader Slobodan Milosevic has been readying his troops for ethnic cleansing for some time.
We have no doubt that he bears political responsibility for the decisions that have been made to crack down through these most brutal means on the people of Kosovo.
On Monday evening, jets took off almost hourly from the Aviano air base as the Allied forces showed no signs of letting up their offensive against Milosevic's ground forces. Earlier in the day, airstrikes took out the Serbian police headquarters in the capital of Kosovo, Pristina. For American troops who take to the skies in aircraft like this C-130, this is a dangerous mission against an unpredictable and brutal leader, but one well worth it.
It's a pretty difficult mission. It takes a lot of time. We put in some long days, but this is what we're trained for, and I think the crew's doing a fantastic job.
Allied forces sent up several USA-10 Warthogs from here at Aviano on Monday, an aircraft appropriately nicknamed the Tank Killer. Clearly, NATO is making some progress against Serbian ground forces, but will it be enough to get the job done? And more importantly, will it be in time to help any of the remaining Kosovar Albanians? The troops here are counting on it. Maureen Maher, CBS News at Aviano Air Force Base in Italy.
Be sure and tune into News 3 this morning tomorrow for the latest on the crisis over Kosovo.
Power in the bombing campaign of Yugoslavia. Nearly 24 additional U.S. planes have been ordered to that region. Pentagon spokesman Kenneth Bacon says the bombing is concentrating more on hitting staging areas and supply lines. But Bacon continues to rule out the use of ground troops. And he says even if some NATO countries decided to deploy ground troops from Europe, it would be weeks before they would be ready for action in Kosovo. Tonight on Newsline, Maggie O'Mara will take a closer look at the stealth fighter crash and how concerned are leaders about the Serbs getting our stealth technology. We'll hear that tonight at 10:35.
Started out cold and windy today, but then we were treated to a little afternoon sun.
And it started to snow again. Is this the sign of things to come, Mark?
Massacres causing so many to flee their homes. Forces are bombing military sites inside Yugoslavia. Those targets now include downtown Belgrade. NATO bombs also took out a bridge across the Danube River today. According to NATO, the bridge was a major travel route for the Serb military. NATO is promising even more of the same, but no amount of bombing can change the humanitarian disaster just outside the Yugoslav border. Just in the last 10 days, more than 300,000 ethnic Albanians have fled Kosovo.
Out of its Aviano base. Last night, cruise missiles targeted downtown Belgrade. Tonight, a bridge in Novi Sad is destroyed. Its center section now drowned in the Danube River. Serbian TV reports some cars were on that bridge and airs pictures of what it says are civilians injured in the attack. And there are new signs of defiance. A Belgrade rock concert near where the missiles hit. And then this on Serb TV. There is another impossible mission underway tonight, getting help to the refugees. In Macedonia, they jam muddy fields, forbidden to enter this country, doomed if they go back to Kosovo. In Albania, some supplies are getting through, and the U.S. tonight is sending more. Will it be enough?
Between 200 and 300,000 people are moving towards the borders. The Serb security forces would have more or less emptied Kosovo in between 10 to 20 days.
As for those 3 American POWs, the Pentagon tonight says it knows nothing new. They haven't been seen again on Serb TV. Their status is unclear. Jim Henschett, NBC News, Washington.
The LDS Church coming to the aid of refugees in Kosovo. LDS Church President Gordon B. Hinckley announced today at the church's 169th annual General Conference that the church will send donations overseas. The church plans to donate clothing and blankets. The Christian relief agency Mercy Corps will distribute the donation. Hinckley called the action of Serbs in Kosovo barbaric.
Day 2 of a massive search led by federal agents.
Shooting out of a group of buildings on the outskirts of town. As the U.S. beefs up its contingent of Kosovo firepower, doubling the number of stealth fighters and adding yet another battle group at sea, NATO predicts that in less than 3 weeks, there won't be any Albanians left in Kosovo to protect. All of them will be here, homeless, hungry, and cold, a life barely better than the one they just fled.
At this rate, the Serb security forces would have more or less emptied Kosovo in between 10 to 20 days from now.
It is being described as a demographic earthquake, a mass of humanity not seen since World War II. Macedonia says it can handle no more and is already closing its borders. And Italy is sending thousands of troops to Albania just to help distribute food. If returning these refugees to their Kosovo homes remains the goal, NATO hinted today that it may need ground forces to do it. A deployment being discussed at the Pentagon, but only after Slobodan Milosevic agrees to withdraw his troops.
There are no plans underway for a ground force in Kosovo, U.S. or NATO, except under a permissive environment pursuant to some form of peace agreement.
An ocean away in cities like Chicago, demonstrations from Muslims in the States was a sign to those suffering that they were not forgotten. Neither of the 3 U.S. servicemen still being held captive in Yugoslavia. A candlelight vigil in Michigan, proof of that, from one of the soldiers' hometowns. The U.S. has already started a massive shipment of aid to the region, with food supplies leaving today, tents, sleeping bags, even trucks on their way in the next couple of days. All of it being shipped a half a world away to a world few thought could be this miserable this fast. Lee Cowan, CBS News, Washington.
Wife Hillary, who are just back from a trip abroad. Before leaving, the president spoke separately by phone with leaders of Britain, France, Spain, and Macedonia. Macedonia is shutting down its borders to try to stem a flood of refugees it says it cannot cope with. Clinton is now in the 2nd week of a nearly constant focus on the Kosovo crisis. About 290,000 refugees have been forced from their homes since the raids began 10 days ago.
As we move